G'day folks. Today I thought I'd show you my winning Supercoach Draft team. So earlier in the year I started a Supercoach Draft league with a group of Supercoach YouTubers. So we called the league AFL YouTubers. And of course I've got my team here, AFL Draft Expert, and I've got my name. So yeah, I guess I could print this out if I desired and put it on my fridge. But yeah, so basically this is the group we had. So we've got George and I in the final. So I was really happy with my finals performances, and yeah, it worked out quite well in the end. So I'll just take you through the teams we had. And there you go. And of course, we've got the league here. So for total points, so Ben, or Supercoach Insider, as you'll know him on YouTube, for the pretty much all the season, well, he was the leading point scorer and he was the player to beat. So I was really happy with my scoring in the finals, certainly relative to how Ben finished the season. So yeah. And if you just want a visual look at the field, which some people at home might, well, here it is. I won't sort of spend too much time on that. But if you want to see the final group that I had, there it is. And then we've got here the finals. So George is the one who put Ben out of action and took him out of the finals. And then, of course, I got George in the final. And DR was probably, in that finals run, my biggest threat, where some of his players were just putting up huge numbers, and quite a few of them are sort of those more erratic scorers. So that was relatively, I guess if you want to call it this, the more sort of scary of the weeks. So yeah, DR put together a pretty strong squad for the end of the year, but yeah, I ended up having the two biggest of the finals performances, as you can see here. And had I faced Supercoach Insider in the final, well, I would have scored quite a bit more, just again with my team coming good at the right time of year and organising some good sort of late season moves to get my group over the line in the end. And then here you've got the total scores there. So as it says here, so I was only in the one league. But yeah, I enjoyed doing Supercoach Draft this year, and I actually prefer it to regular Supercoach. Of course, the win helps, but I just found it was a lot more hands-off, and I don't have to track, who's in, who's out, who are the late changes, because I don't track any of that at all. So, and it'll probably come through when you see my transaction history. So, yeah, so if you wanted a quick draft recap, so this is the group I had to start the year, so you can go through it in your own time. Honestly, the few of the midfielders that I selected at the start of the year were quite disappointing, and I was really sort of thinking, I've got incredible value with a lot of them. And same with the forwards as well, where a side bottom I thought would be a lot better, same with a wing guard, but yeah, very limited value. Gaff, another of the mids, wasn't even really sort of field worthy for much of the year for my group, which was a bit disappointing. But Doherty I was really happy with, that was great value. And Dylan Moore was a good surprise. And Taylor Walker as well at the end gave me great service too. So they were some of the successes from that. Then we've got the transaction list. So I'll just go through some of the notables. So it seems to work going sort of from the down up, if that makes sense, top to bottom. Bottom to top. So what have we got here? So this was one of the more notable trades that I ran. The disappointing element to me, and this was in the preseason, was Taron Thomas, where I was really hoping for a much better season than expected. I wasn't expecting him even just to replicate what he did last year, but I thought, he'll at least average 80, but no, he didn't. So, look, I got the best player in the deal with Bont, and eventually he got the forward eligibility, which was the big edge there for me in the end, given I had a really strong midfield group and my forwards were really quite gravely lacking. But yeah, Spill was a bit unlucky with a few injuries there. Merritt missed a bit of time. Hickey missed time. But I'll only go through other sort of notable trades. that were of interest. But you can see this is what all the the participants, all the Supercoach YouTubers did. So feel free to call anyone out on good trade, bad trade, whatever the case may be in in particular instances. Yeah, a lot of fairly uninteresting ones in that early part, but yeah, things do sort of, in a way, spice up in bits and pieces, but you'll find there'll be a few interesting trades later on. And the cancelled trades seem to be ones that I offered and then may have taken off the table just because they weren't sort of, the other people just weren't accepting the trades. So I believe that's what cancelled means. Let me know in the comments section below if it means something else. But yeah, basically all these cancelled trades are ones that I offered anyway. So judge me accordingly for making those offers. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. It's a real mixed bag. It's fair to say. So Daniel Rioli, this was one of the picks I was more happy with. So some of the players I was more impressed with, I'll sort of make mention of, and this will include some of the other participants as well. So with Rioli, and I tweeted this live at the time when I was watching it, I made the comment, this was right at this time, that Rioli's found a new position. So like he was really struggling as a forward. He wasn't finding enough of it, wasn't hitting the scoreboard. He could provide pressure, but you need to do that and something else. So, but with Rioli, just the drive he was generating from defense, the sheer run, acceleration, just that real sort of ability and want to take on the game. But then as well, just the beautiful skills where he can be running up the field, cover a lot of meters, but then he's still got that composure and that skill to hit up those sort of leading forward 50 targets. They're the sort of things where if you're doing that and at volume, which Rioli was showing even then, well, he's clearly AFL quality in that role and he's clearly found a role. So, and in the end, it's played out that way, even though, at the time, there were quite a few people actually quite critical of that opinion of mine on Twitter. So I'll count that as a definite win. But yeah, a lot of these players that I got right were just a case of, well, that's just watching football and recognizing, these guys can really play and have the potential to outscore a lot of the guys that I have on my field in quite a few cases. So Brayshaw was another where just upon that switch back and starting to really look good and look comfortable and find the footy importantly from a Supercoach context, well, it was a clear move to pick him up from the waivers for mine. So I was really happy to grab Brayshaw, and I wasn't completely sure that he'd be a field option, but I thought there was the chance that he could be. So that one worked out brilliantly. And then same with Braden Pruce. So when he returned, well, he was really sort of almost my best ruckman for much of the year. So he provided a lot of value for me, and that was a really good one. Okay. Yeah, Witherden was one that provided a heap of value, and it was just a case of, well, upon sort of rejoining the group, getting regular games, well, he can score. We know from years past he can find the footy, takes a heap of marks, generates meaningful drives. So, no surprise that he was going to be able to score if he was playing, but the risk was always going to be job security, which we found out later in the year he didn't have for the whole duration, I guess you could say. Kadeem Coleman, he was a little bit in and out of my side, but yeah, I was really happy, particularly late in the year, to have him, it's fair to say. So SC Insider did great here with Darcy Cameron. So yeah, just obviously with Gorn getting hurt, it's just one of those where I just felt silly not checking the waiver wire, checking that like he was among those free agents or whatever it's called in Supercoach Draft. So yeah, is one I should have put in a bid for, and because Supercoach Insider was yeah, well ahead of me on the ladder at this stage, well, I could have got in first. So that's one, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed about not sort of having on my list of players that I wanted to bring in, yeah, given, yeah, the Grundy situation. Seb Ross, this was a good in. So Sidebottom was disappointing. He wasn't scoring enough. But Seb Ross was scoring well, and I thought, yeah, he can maintain his midfield performance. He's a proven past midfielder, but has always just needed those minutes. So with those minutes coming, well, yeah, of course, he was someone I was really comfortable bringing in and ended up being quite valuable in the end. Blitzarves, this was a great get by Supercoach Insider. He was scoring really well, but with Blitzarves, I've always felt, well, there's uncertainty about his roles. So my assumption was always, oh, he's just going to end up switching back into defense and he's going to score a negligible amount. But in the end, not so, and he played some quite scoring-friendly roles throughout the year. So yeah, really good get and well done. And Darcy Fort, he provided a bit of value here and there as well, as a bit of a surprise packet. So, again, this time it was DR doing that. So, yeah, Brisbane fan, of course, recognising his own player. So, well done there. Yeah, Tom Lynch had a terrific season, didn't he? So credit where it's due. Blakey had a good year as well, so this was a good one by Spill. Newcomb I had in and out. Lucky at the very end of the season for a bit I had him in, but yeah, they're the key pieces there. Yep, so Coleman I brought back in, so I was happy with that. Tui was a bit in and out for me. LDU, great pickup by Supercoach Insider here. Really did a terrific job in picking that one out and recognising that, yeah, he was about to explode and he really did take off in that second half of the year. So, yeah, LDU's looking like a really good piece for North Melbourne. Probably he's probably the best player now, it's fair to say. So, he's probably even contending with Brayshaw for best in that, or best midfielder in that draft at least. Maybe I could make a case for a few of the tools in that draft. But yeah, LDU of the mids is really gaining on Brayshaw in a hurry, and he's looking, particularly in those contested components, and has a bit more sort of that burst as well and power. He's that sort of better footballer, but in terms of all-round game and completeness, probably Brayshaw still edges him. So this was a good trade for George. The reason I did it, so I was thinking, oh yeah, new coach, Whitfield, his game will open up a bit. He's going to score a bit better. He's going to have a more Supercoach-friendly role. So bad assumption there on my part, but I wanted another forward. So I was pretty keen to bring Taranto in. So, but George did well getting Rich and Brayshaw. Hey, good gets, George. Well done, mate. Take advantage of my subpar trade. And I found I'm not an incredible trader, and a lot of my trades actually worked out pretty badly, but it's more those free agency gets that I just went money ball and yeah, picked the eyes out of it. So Swallow, he was pretty good, but a bit in and out for me. Just couldn't quite fit him into my best starting group, so that was why. Himmelberg, this was a great get, and it was just a case of recognizing, well, he's intercepting like nuts, he's generating meaningful drive, taking some kickouts as well, so this scoring is sustainable. So I thought, yeah, I've got myself a field option. My front half is pretty weak. This is great. So I was really happy to get Himmelberg. And Yeah, worked out very nicely in the end. And this trade here, so this is a big one, isn't it? So Parrish, Merritt, Darcy, SC Insider got some big pieces. Brayshaw, good get. Lynch, pretty good. Yeah, and it's more of a solid group versus, I guess, a big three here. So, yeah, interesting trade, to say the least. But obviously, Spill really wanted to complete his field versus SC Insider, who probably wanted a bit more of that top end top up, which he certainly got with particularly Parrish and Merritt this year. So, and he did well because he had a lot of DPPs. So anytime Darcy was out, yeah, he was completely fine too. So it might have been a win-win there, possibly, without sort of having closely tracked either of their teams. Yep, that's that. And you can see that in terms of like all the free agents, well, needless to say, I was the most active there. Just sort of always wanting to upgrade my bench, upgrade my field at every opportunity. So, yeah, so that's sort of how I played it. Even if, again, I wasn't sort of watching the ins and outs from week to week, which a few times actually hurt me more than I expected, given the caliber of the sort of players we're talking about for the purposes of this sort of game. Yeah, Redmond, that was a great in for me. So just recognizing that he's hitting every target, he's taking kickouts, he's intercepting, his rebounding, finding a heap of it. They're the things you want. So that was an obvious in, and I just started fielding him, and he scored great for me. So even if during, I guess, the finals rounds, he didn't score as well, but hey, he got me to the finals. So yeah, thanks for your service. But yeah, I guess on the point with Redmond as well, it's been interesting just going off Supercoach for a minute, just how well the Essendon defenders have developed over the last couple of years. So, or even last 3 years, where you've had Ridley, well, he's broken out. Laverde's become a piece. Nick Hind, he's become a really good piece as well. So having that sort of development in defence, Redmond going from, is he a long-term best 22 player to, oh, gee, this guy's a really good defender and one of Essendon's very, very best players. So, yeah, so it's a credit to how they've been developing them. And look, I actually think that probably Dyson Heppel and Michael Hurley have probably played pretty big roles in their development. So, yeah, if I was a rival team looking to, I guess, fast track the development of a lot of my players, well, I'd be talking to Dyson Heppel and looking to bring him into my playing group because, yeah, I think there would be a fair chance that he's had quite a large part to play in that. So maybe if I'm in North Melbourne, maybe I'd be looking at something like that and trying to bring a Heppel in. And look, I'd still be playing him and playing him alongside these younger defenders. But yeah, just having that leadership, that experience, that sort of support on the track, developing him, all of that's just really golden. So I think that's really helped with a lot of the playing growth from Essendon, even if they've had it in other positions with the likes of a Peter Wright and whatnot elsewhere. But yeah, to get back on track. So moving to the next round, Atkins, he provided a lot of service. And again, it was a case of looking at, well, yeah, he's playing through the midfield now. He's getting his centre bounce opportunities. So new role, new scoring capabilities. So it's just a case of looking at it that logically. That's why I brought him in. And that was a good one. Yeah, McAvoy, he provided some good service for Supercoach Insider. So, yeah, it was a good get. Had a few handy games and having that forward ruck status as well. Yeah, great deal of flexibility there. So, yeah, it was really myself and Supercoach Insider that really took advantage of those free agency opportunities. And I think that's what really mostly separated us during much of the year and helped me at least in the finals. So, yeah, it was a big edge there. Yep, so Finlayson, this was a great get. So it was Supercoach Insider just recognizing that, yeah, hey, he's actually playing through the ruck, so he's likely to score quite a lot more, given the likes of Hayes and Lysette, well, they weren't being selected. So, yeah, it was a really good get in Finlayson at this point in time, and yeah, it's just well scouted, basically. And Witherden, well, funny story. So I cut him, and then yeah, Supercoach Insider or Ben just picks him up at this point in time. So great get, and yeah, I was hating myself for doing it because I thought, oh yeah, he's been out for, let's call it, a month or whatever it was, and yeah, I wasn't expecting him to reclaim his spot given quite a few Eagles were yeah, returning from injury and health concerns and whatnot. So yeah, I just didn't think necessarily he'd get back in, but yeah, that one burned me at least for a few weeks. Fortunately, not during finals, but Witherden gave me great service throughout the year. So yeah, that helped me out, particularly in that sort of mid portion, I suppose you could say. He's a great servant for my group. Okay, so Matheson, I was really happy to bring him in at this point. Just seeing what he'd been doing in the VFL, he'd been ripping it up. So it's one of the advantages of being a state league watcher where I can recognize these guys and go, yeah, this guy is good enough to not only hold his spot, but score a heap. So yeah, I was really happy to bring Matheson in. But of course, with Ashcroft coming through the draft for Brisbane next year, will Matheson hold his spot? Well, he's most logically that first sort of mid out. So I'd say that might mean he presents a good actual trade target in terms of actual list management rather than Supercoach I'm referring to here. So yeah, so maybe a club sort of that, I guess, deficient, looking for that extra good midfielder through there, just another number. And Matheson could provide a possible decent option. So yeah, certainly watch out for his name during the trade period because I think he could be someone worth consideration for a team. But look, if Brisbane keep him, it was sensational depth at absolute worst. But yeah, I think he does offer best 22 value for a team looking for that. It's fair to say. Yep, so this trade here, so I traded out more, got in short. Well, a good idea by DR to make that move. Where again, we're finding in our comp the forwards were a bit more scarce and hard to find, the good ones. And then short had really sort of dropped off due to role changes. So, yeah, I probably should have kept more, but yeah, it didn't really matter in the end. Okay. Barris, great pickup by Supercoach Insider. Just recognizing just every week he was scoring, intercepting a heap. Yeah, just generating a lot of drive from defense. So yeah, it's one maybe I should have picked up on it sooner, but frankly, I haven't been watching a lot of West Coast this year because, well, they've just had so many injuries and they've been completely uninteresting. So yeah, maybe it was just tracking the scores, or maybe yeah, it was actually bothering to watch West Coast when I wasn't really a whole lot. So, because yeah, if you're a bottom two team and you're pretty rubbish and you don't have all that much meaningful youth, which yeah, West Coast don't, well, I'm not going to watch a lot of you. So yeah, unless there's a particularly interesting player I want to see in action, like say a Jai Cully, I watched a couple of his games, but yeah, unless that's the case, well, I'm not all that interested in West Coast, at least this past year. Maybe with a few good young picks coming through in the next few years, well, maybe they might have a bit more of my attention, perhaps. Ed Richards, this was a pickup I was really happy with, where he had that few-week run leading into this point in time where I was thinking, yep, he's got the role, he's finding a heap of it, using it really well, and that production is sustainable. So Richards came in and immediately I fielded him, really being confident in his game. So, and it's great to see Richards really break out into what looks like an ongoing long-term best 22 piece now. Whereas if I was going back, let's call it 2-3 months, well, I wasn't really sure, honestly. So, yeah, it's really good to see that progress from him. And then, yeah, this trade was a really lucky one for me, where basically what was happening was Supercoach Insider was, yeah, trying to. I think he was trying to get. I think he was trying to get Cunnington. I'm just trying to remember what was going on with this one. I think he was trying to get Cunnington for nothing, or I'm just trying to remember, or Cunnington and Gaff. And I thought, okay, I'll put some outlandish trade out there that he won't accept. And then he accepted it, thinking, as he said in hindsight over Twitter, that he thought he was getting Sicily and Zorko. So yeah, it was a bit of a whoops moment for Ben there. And look, in the end, I didn't really need this trade, but yeah, look, I guess it worked out for me incidentally. And look, I was actually thinking Cunnington would return and actually score quite well, but yeah, it didn't happen in the end. And Gaff was sort of handy as bench insurance, and it did weaken my midfield in a sense, losing both. But yeah, of course, gaining Sicily, Zorko, I was never going to field. But yeah, gaining Sicily was a huge win for me. So yeah, that worked out great in the end. And then I ended up, as you'll see soon, moving Sicily in a trade that may have hurt Ben as it works out even more. So any other interesting ones here? No. Yeah, so Cripps was a bit of a quick in and out where it was sort of, yeah, I had him all year and I thought, he's out for the year. I'll get rid of him. And I thought, yeah, I'll bring him in. I'll bring him back just in case he comes back. So lucky I did. Again, might not have mattered, but yeah, glad I brought him back in. So yeah, and then this is the trade. So I wanted a midfield upgrade. So yeah, I went for Tuke Miller, identifying that he had a really good, in particular, last round, because my concern ultimately was facing Supercoach Insider in the final, who at least throughout, I guess, the home and away rounds for Supercoach purposes, excluding what are the Supercoach finals, well, he was the leading scorer. So I was really planning around sort of, how can I beat Supercoach Insider? So I thought, okay, well, to match some of his star midfielders, having some really good ones through there, well, I'll upgrade and get a Miller. And then with George having the matchup with Supercoach Insider the week before, well, I was thinking, okay, well, how can I create a win-win to significantly improve George's team, use up some of my bench insurance, which I don't need, and then also upgrade my field at the same time. So yeah, so getting Miller was a big help because ultimately, well, Whitfield and Perryman, I wasn't even sure I'd include in my best 22. Mitchell was part of my best 22, but not overwhelmingly strong. And then Sicily, well, he actually outperformed Miller in the weeks following this trade. So yeah, look, it ended up being a particularly good trade for George, but as you can see with the final result, well, it didn't impact me negatively. But yeah, look, had the trade not happened, well, I think George would have won his matchup anyway. And yeah, again, for me, either way, it wouldn't have mattered. And even going back the week with the trade where I got Sicily from Supercoach Insider, again, it wouldn't have mattered, I don't believe. So yeah, I ended up getting a little bit lucky in the end. And then here we go. So, and then these were the final ones. So Robot and I ended up, as you might have seen before, fielding. So that was something I was pretty happy with in the final round, how he scored. And I thought, well, Saints are an easier matchup than whether it's a Lions or a Matheson against Melbourne. So I thought, okay, I'll bring in Rowbottom. That'll do fine. Hewitt I brought in just in case he was going to be named. So, but in the end, look, he wasn't. But yeah, I thought I'd do that just in case. But yeah, no problem there. Bruce, he provided me great service during the year, but I thought, look, if one of my rucks get hurt, getting the bench scoring at least from a Meek, well, that's there just in case. And then, yeah, so Atkins, I think he was sub for Geelong in the last round, and then Scrimshaw was a sort of, again, just a bench player. So, yeah, they were the transactions completed. So I guess from earlier in the year when I asked the question, well, is this AFL draft expert a Supercoach draft expert? Well, I'm not going to call myself an expert, but I'm really glad that I ended up winning in the end, and I learned quite a lot from the process. And yeah, hopefully I'm involved again next year in the Supercoach draft for all the Supercoach YouTubers or AFL YouTubers broadly. And yeah, hopefully we get a few more names involved next year, and yeah, hopefully I put together a competitive team again. But yeah, certainly through playing through that, I found that yeah, again, because I don't check all the sort of late changes, I don't check who's listed for a particular week. Well, the main sort of Supercoach Classic and AFL Fantasy Classic, those formats don't really suit me as much as just that, I guess, draft format where I can just go pure talent ID and really just recognize, okay, their role's good, they're going to score well. I found that really worked quite well for me in the end, even if I did do some silly things like whether it's dropping a Witherden before he was about to get named or whatever the case may be. So, or maybe being a tiny bit too late on the waiver wire and not getting, maybe it's a Darcy Cameron or whoever, I could probably pay a bit more attention to those. But it's just a case of, well, I watch so much footy, whether it's AFL, state leagues, obviously the juniors as well. I just pick up on, well, who are those players playing Supercoach friendly roles? And yeah, even if they're not in Classic necessarily going to be that, I guess, top 6 overall scorers by position, well, at least for the purposes of draft, I can really recognize, yeah, this guy's going to outscore this guy, and I should really be bringing them in. So, yeah, so that's how that worked out. Thanks for watching, folks, and yeah, if you enjoy this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates, and let me know in the comments section below, would you like more Supercoach Draft content in the future? Honestly, in playing through it this year, I find it to be more fun than I do the Classic. So your Supercoach Classic, your AFL Fantasy Classic, yeah, it's just more fun just because I can be a bit more passive and pick up players that aren't sort of your sort of generic players, whether it's your super scoring high level guys or your rookies who are bargain basement price. I really like that sort of, I guess, opportunity to more directly compete over players and really go for them in free agency, maybe work on some timely trades as I did during the final series, just to give me that final boost at the end of the year and get those high scores. I just found that to be quite fun and something a bit different. So of course winning helps, but yeah, I just found during the year I was a lot more engaged with it, as you saw with all the free agent moves. Well, yeah, I just sort of found it interesting looking through, okay, who's available? Yeah, these guys can outperform some on my field versus in Supercoach Classic. Like, I wouldn't even bother looking at the teams announced after the first few rounds. It was just sort of didn't have the time, energy, inclination for it. I just didn't want to invest that sort of time, and I wanted to really do it on my own schedule. So Supercoach Draft really worked quite well for me in that respect. So yeah, but anyway, guys, see you in the next video.